All right, so we had talked last month about putting together, really the first proposed, budget for the land bank, since we're in going on our 4th year of work plans. So we kind of put together a proposed draft budget, and we can get into a little bit more of it when we get into the 2022 work plan later on. But it kind of puts some numbers down here based upon the work plan and the intended ask to the Erie County Land Bank to fund the land bank activities for 2022. And also included in there is the Keystone Blight Reduction Grant of $150,000 from the authority, which was utilizing the land bank's work plan as matched to that grant. So all that in total with all of that, is our income, and then of course, the expenses with demolition, tax sale acquisitions, condemnation acquisitions, maintenance, some money in there for rehabilitation, environmental abatement, asbestos and all that, with some of the commercial properties we may end up with, and then the other operating expenses as a proposed budget. Of course, this is all proposed and draft until we would be able to get an approval on a work plan from the county land bank.
Okay. Any questions on the proposed budget? Aaron, I have a quick question. I know we talked, I believe it was last month, or might have been 2 months ago, about the what the land bank does owe the authority. Is there a component of that built into this budget when we start to bring that down, or?
Yes, we increased the ERA admin and staffing fee,
Okay.
Or the amount that's in there. We upped that percentage in the calculation of what we're doing for 2 reasons. One, to help kind of catch up on that past due balance, and also to fund a person to help with the management of the properties. It's getting to the point, the work plan this year is aggressive, and in order to facilitate that, we're going to need a staff member to help move that along as quickly as possible. So, yeah, there's roughly in there a standard kind of inspector position, with about an additional, 20% for cost to be picked up from the previous years.
Okay, so we'll be able to see that balance drawn down then? Will you be able to update us as
Yes, and I got an
Okay.
update for you here.
Okay. Sorry if you were going to cover that already.
Oh, no problem.
Kathy?
Question about
Yep.
that, thank you. So Aaron, with this position, are you anticipating that this would be a land bank coordinator position, or is this you mentioned inspection, but what do you anticipate coming out of it?
It will be a position in the authority with its major part of their percentage being land bank activities or
Okay.
blighted property. Whether
So
it be land bank or authority, it's
Okay.
going to be blight focused on the properties that we are looking at or that we acquire to make the determinations and move that paperwork forward.
Okay, that makes sense.
And relieve a lot of that off of my plate.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the proposed budget? If not, let's go ahead and move on to the report of the executive director.
All right, thank you. So this will be the last month for Work Plan 1 and Work Plan 2. I feel that, we're kind of at the point where everything on those is either moving forward in a direction to sell, or is a side lot where we're still optioning it out. So just to kind of finalize on that, 422 Poplar, we did get the sales agreement back from Ms. Howard on 422 Poplar Street. So that has been sent over to the attorneys to get that process moving forward, so we can get that conveyance of that property off of Work Plan 1. And then Work Plan 2, we're still working through on, a few of the conveyances that you guys have previously approved, waiting on some stuff to get back from the individuals on those, and then we'll get those ones, conveyed as quickly as we can, and then, again, continue to work on those properties. So like I said, moving forward after this month, I'll probably just provide you guys a monthly update of what lots, are in the authority's ownership. That way you're just familiar with what's going on, and update you if anything is, transferring at that point. On to the 2021 work plan. We received demo bids on the two properties over on East Fifth Street, so we've signed contracts to get those two properties demolished. They were both ones we acquired at tax sale. They're both become a nuisance on the neighborhood, so we're gonna get those demolished before we convey them to Best, so that those are no longer an issue and we're not getting calls on them anymore. And then we're still working on conveying the two properties to our West Bayfront. It's basically just a back and forth to get everything finalized, and then we'll be able to get those conveyed over to them. And then we're still working through, waiting on the authority to finish the condemnations of the properties remaining on the list. And then just an update. We sent in 2 disbursement requests last month to the county land bank for our activities to get reimbursed for. Work Plan 2, like I said, we closed that one out. There's really no need to keep that open with them. So we sent in a final disbursement request, kind of right at a percentage as far as the admin goes. And we drew down $12,300, and $10,379 of that was, due to the back admin that we have. So we kind of got a decent chunk of that to catch up on that $30,000 that we're owed to the redevelopment authority. So in total, out of the 2 draws between Work Plan 1 or Work Plan 2 and the 21 work plan, we took in $12,000 in admin as part of those 2 programs, along with all the other legal fees and that we had to rec to them for. So that's all I have as far as my executive director report.
Okay, thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions from the panel?
Aaron, how are we gonna go about continuing to advertise these vacant lots? Are we gonna continue to do status quo, or are we?
Currently, we got some yard signs for them, so we have a few yard signs out on some of the lots, kind of see how that goes. And then, as we move forward, we'll keep updating the website and put them out there. And then, once we acquire some of these properties, we'll have to have a discussion, as far as a board, as far as, how you'd like to see us to get those out there to the residents.
I apologize because I haven't been here for the past 2 meetings, but how have the yard signs been working? Have we generated any interest for using them?
No, we have not got any calls off of the lots as far as purchase. We have got calls off the lots as far as there's a tire on the lot, but that's about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on then to our next item, which is solicitor's report.
Good afternoon, Board. I'm Gene Sundberg at the Marsh Law Firm. There's a couple of things that I've been working on. The memorandum of understanding, that was a request to look into whether there should be an agreement between the City of Erie Land Bank and any other entities that are in similar situations, and to make sure that everybody's coordinating efforts. And I'm convinced that we are, that the lines of communications between the County Land Bank and the City of Erie Land Bank and the redevelopment authorities, that there is a really good line of communication. So I'm not convinced that we need to have what would be deemed a formal memorandum of understanding, I don't want to be pigeonholed or painted into a corner. It's been working out without one at this point. If it gets to a point where we need to protect the interest of the land bank, we'll do that. But at this point, we don't have to. So I don't want to create a document for the sake of just creating it that might obligate us to something that isn't really necessary. So that's kind of on hold at this point. The other project that I've been looking at is not necessarily unique, but to a certain extent it is as it relates to the City of Erie, because we all know so many people. So there's what I'm in the process of doing is gathering what is deemed the conflict of interest memorandum of other land banks and other similarly situated entities, so that we kind of have, and most importantly the board has, a roadmap or a grid or bullet outlines, so that we don't get into a situation where someone's feeling uncomfortable about voting or not voting on an issue or a matter that comes before the land bank. So we have been reaching out to see what other similarly situated entities have, so that as a working model. So I'll have that done here in short order for everybody, because that's something that I think that the board of directors needs to have in their packet. Because again, we know everybody. Everybody knows us, and we don't wanna feel uncomfortable at any point during the process that maybe we should abstain from voting for something, or we should have and didn't, or so that's something that I think is gonna be a working model that I'd like the board to have, and I think that we probably would certainly have that and fine tune it to the point where the board has it within the next couple of months. And the last issue is, we have been working on a number of transactions to get properties titled into the land bank. I've been working closely with the director, and we're making significant process to get that. In fact, I just had a woman who wants to gift it or grant it to the land bank. It's not in good shape, but again, finish the title search, no other liens or encumbrances. We're going to make sure she pays the real estate taxes, so that when that property is conveyed to the land bank, that it truly is free and clear. So that the land bank can then, you as a board can make an analysis, what you want to do with that property. Again, looking for opportunities where the land bank can take care of these properties, but also possibly make some money to have, another source of income for what our goal is as the City of Erie Land Bank. So we're working very closely with the director to get that all done, and we're making significant progress. And so I appreciate his office in helping us through that. That's the extent of it.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for solicitor? I appreciate that guidance, because I do think going forward, clarifying potential conflicts of interest as we tackle more properties and try to redevelop and tackle some of the brownfields, that's going to be helpful. A lot of it's obvious, but any kind of guidance like that's going to be beneficial.
And it's important for all the board members to have that as a working model to go through, because again, we know a lot of people. Erie's, it's a big city, but in a lot of ways it's a small town. It's amazing when you get right into situations, who you know and who knows you, and I really don't want the board to be uncomfortable at any point. And if you are, then we have these guidelines so that you can be comfortable with the decision as whether you're voting on a topic or you're abstaining from it. So that's the goal, and that's the process, and hope to have that done here in very short order. And it may very well be something that is, fluid, so that when unique situations come up, that we may add or detract from it, depending upon how it all works out. So I don't know that it necessarily be set in stone, but something that is a generalized guideline for us to follow, and might have to be tweaked periodically. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, let's go ahead and move on to new business. Aaron?
All right, so if you guys remember 2 months ago, we had 1904 June Street on the agenda. You guys voted to table it for 60 days to give Ms. Beeson some time, who is one of the people who put in a proposal on the property, to put together a plan. I emailed that out to you guys last week, and then I believe Courtney put together a packet for you. But she reached out to an architect and put together a plan for the property. A very nice plan, I must say. And last week, her and Mr. Horton came into the office to drop it off. We talked about it, and it's an aggressive plan. It's a big project, but it's certainly something that she expressed a deep interest in wanting to do. As a resident of the housing authority, property, she's ready to buy a piece of property, expand her her daycare, build a single-family residence that can have her daycare involved in it. You know, she put together a kind of some financing options of how she, you know, would intend to finance the project. But, you know, she did what was asked, you know, she went and put together a very nice proposal as far as, you know, what she wants to do to that lot and help the neighborhood and continue to, you know, grow her daycare. She did provide me her certificate of occupancy and her state license for her daycare operations. So we have that as well. You know, of course, you know, the price tag being, you know, $724,000. Of course, that's high, but, you know, keep in mind it's a commercial building along with a daycare on the same lot. So, you know, her financing, there's, you know, government grants, personal financing, and home loans, you know, all of which, you know, certainly there's people that will help point her in the right direction and, you know, help her along the way, so.
We need a motion?
Yeah,
Or
this is
questions?
really, yeah, the would be whether to accept her proposal or any of the other two proposals that we had on the property. So, but, I mean, hers is the only one that signified the building of a dwelling or structure on that lot.
I'll make the motion.
I second it.
Any other comments?
I just had one question, I'll have an opportunity to look at the plans. Is Ms. Beeson here? Is that?
No, she's not. She wasn't sure if she'd have somebody to fill her to watch the kids to get here.
I know when we discussed this earlier, the way that I understood the proposal was this was gonna be built as a single-family home, and she planned on running a family daycare out of her home. It looks like she's actually adding a daycare center to the property and also her home.
Mm-hmm.
And my only concern is that that's a larger, for her, I wanna ensure that she's able to, if the daycare center is not able to move forward, is she still gonna be able just to build it as a single-family home, because there's other approvals that kick in because this is a higher intense development than what we had thought. Just putting it out there, I was kinda hoping she was here today, but, and maybe she has made those accommodations that this could just be a home if she's not able to move forward and get the financing for a daycare center. There's gonna be parking requirements that she'll have to meet that it doesn't look like they've been accounted for here. I'm sorry, I didn't look at the zoning code and the requirements before coming, but that may be something that you wanna advise her on, just so she has the full knowledge
Okay.
of that.
Yeah, I can reach out to her about that.
Cause the proposed use isn't really a single-family home off-street parking, it's really a daycare center at this point, so. Not that I have an issue with that, again, at this point, I'm not sure about the use, and if there's any limitations from a zoning standpoint, because I didn't have an opportunity to look at that, but it's a little bit larger, I just wanted to point that out than what we had thought. I would, though, it's not I will vote in favor of it, just wanted to make sure that we were aware of the change in scope.
Thanks, Kevin.
I also wanted to make sure that when we are approving a proposal for purchase, that, and this might go to Attorney Sundberg, we're kind of relinquished from any of the code regulations. We are not an authority that can approve the different necessary code regulations that have to be in place for this property to potentially be built. So I just want to make sure that as we're moving forward, we understand that our responsibility is to convey the properties. And I also will vote for this because I think it's a wonderful, ambitious goal of hers, and I want to see her be successful. But I also want to make sure that we as an entity aren't saying, so for example, the sprinkler system in here. Because it's a single-family home, a sprinkler system wasn't required in this plan, but if it was a daycare, would that sprinkler system be required? And we're approving the purchase of the residential property, but we're not in any way, shape, or form making any judgments about what has to go into this project. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And you, just to follow up, because the other offers didn't involve construction on the property, which is why we were supportive of this advancing. The other ones were, I think, an urban farm.
Urban
or something.
garden up parking
Yeah,
lot.
another urban garden, which we don't really want to support. So we wanted to see something that actually put the use back on the property, just to clarify too, so.
So are we suggesting an actual phrase where it says we're not, back to your point, I'm not sure how we want to word
I
that.
don't know how we
but-
wanna word that, or if we even need to word that.
But by approving, we're not necessarily giving our opinion on full compliance for zoning, for code, for building permit,
Right.
whatever it might be.
Right.
This is simply approving your idea, conveying the property, but
conveying
this
the
is
property.
not anything beyond that.
Right.
And I agree with that, because I think it could be construed that we are saying that it
Mhm.
fits, and it may not. But we'd like to see an individual try to make it work.
Absolutely.
But we're in no position to say that. And I think that is important, that we protect ourselves. The other thing, and I'm sorry, did you have
No,
any-
that's it.
the other thing I wanted to say too is, when we requested additional information, I know part of that, a big part of that was the finance component. And I don't know if that's our role, but if somebody's coming to us saying that I'd like to use the property for a commercial endeavor or a business endeavor, should we want to see a financing approval or pre-approval attached to that, or are we okay with just letting the individual move on that? I really don't know what the answer is on that, but this is an ambitious budget.
Yeah,
and-
I guess I think the fact that we just asked her to come with a proposal, and she came with the proposal, at the time, we didn't ask for, finance or any of that stuff that, we asked for a certain thing, she brought it back to us, and I don't know.
And maybe that goes beyond what we're doing. It's more conversation and question, because I don't know if it's not gonna affect this one.
Right.
Maybe it's a conversation for next month, clarify language.
I
but-
feel like we tend to always get back to this point, or this question of what's our role, how much do we ask for? We wanna make sure we're not giving them, pre-approvals for development that hasn't been properly vetted. I get it, because we don't want these just to sit vacant and idle and get
Right.
back into the system again. And so it's a good question I don't have an answer to.
Yeah, it is, because you bring up another point, and last week I was going through a lot of the old, the properties we've conveyed under redeveloper agreements and the current status of them, and it's really not good as far as where people have progressed with properties that we've sold under redeveloper agreements, and in there was, and most of them was a 9-month clause, and we're well in 18 months, 20 months on some of those, and the outside still looked the way they did when we conveyed them to them, and of course, we have that reverter clause in there, and we have the ability to recapture the property, but, is that, I mean, is it where we wanna go, but was it maybe a problem on the front end, that we conveyed it to somebody that wasn't quite prepared to do what they said they were gonna do, but I think moving forward, when we do those redeveloper agreements, I'm gonna ask for a little bit more as far as specifically that, the financing, what they plan, and, a hard timeline, because, none of them are really going anywhere. I know 1302 Parade Street, I'm pretty sure it's being torn down right now,
It's down.
It's down now,
Mhm.
so
And
what
it
his plan is now it's a vacant lot, it was sold under the redevelopers agreement, so of course he's still gonna develop it, but it certainly has changed from what it was when we sold it.
I mean, I think going forward, not this one, but going forward, if it's going to be used for a business, an enterprise, commercial use, that there should be some form of pre-approval for the financing, show that your capital stack's in place, so that next year we don't see that maybe it hasn't moved forward. So maybe we can formalize that more, some
Yeah,
sort of
that's,
language. but-
those are all points well taken. We need to take a look at that. We don't wanna overextend, our control. But yeah, I understand the thought that you need to make sure that they have the wherewithal on a number of different areas to carry through what they're telling the land bank that they're going to do. But again, you want to be really careful about signs of control for fear that they don't put, you know, smoke detectors in or, you know, water, you know, water within the building, if it's a daycare, and saying, okay, why did you guys sell this if you knew that they didn't have the wherewithal to follow through with that? So
Right.
it's really a delicate situation, but again, something that we ought to look at. And I think that there's documentation that can be prepared to protect the land bank and put the responsibility on the buyer to provide assurances and confirmation, and under the right of reverter, if it doesn't happen, we can come back in and take it back. But yeah, those are all points well taken, and that we need to take a look at that, especially on commercial properties.
Well, and it's protecting everyone involved, because I don't want to do someone a disservice by having them think they can move ahead with this and find out that they can't get, you know, the type of financing they thought they could get. And it's probably better they find that out in this process, because then maybe they change their mind and don't want to move ahead, and we're helping that person discover that. So I just don't know what that balancing act is, but I think we need to figure out if these projects are doable earlier on. But as far as this is concerned, you know, we're not holding this up, I believe. We have a motion and a second. So, any other comments? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Let's see. What work?
All right, so I apologize for not getting this out to you guys before the board meeting. Finalized a few of the numbers this morning. It was a busy week last week with the 2 board meetings today. So the proposed 2022 work plan, like I said, you know, the budget and this kind of go hand in hand. If, you know, we get approval from the Erie County Land Bank for the funding, then, you know, that's kind of where we'll go with putting together that proposal or the budget for you guys in December. So moving forward, and just kind of go, you know, I have this, you know, after I kind of go over this, you know, if I get approval to put together a proposal to the county land bank, so I can get that to them before their governance meeting in October. So hopefully we can get approval from them in, you know, the end of October at their regular meeting, and then we'll be able to move forward with getting the budget together in November. But so on here, you know, really we have the acquisition of 18 properties off the judicial tax sale list and 24 properties off of the blight list. So, and then it kind of breaks down, you know, 32 demolitions, 3 environmental abatements, 3 rehabilitations, and that 3 rehabilitations, I'm not factoring in rehabilitation of full, complete rehabilitation. It's more of for a few of the properties off the judicial list that may just need a roof or some cleanup just to make them, you know, ready for sale again, to get them back on the market. That's more what that's for. And then I've, you know, 60 lots for seasonal care. Board and seals, you know, with acquiring this large amount of properties, we're not going to be able to get to them as quickly as we could in the past. So I certainly wanted to factor in being able to get them boarded up to make them, you know, safer for the neighborhood. So we're not getting calls on people being in them. A couple of the ones on the tax sale list are nuisance properties by EPD. They're always out there. So we certainly need to take control of those as quickly as we can. And then, of course, trash removal and clean out. They're all vacant properties. We need to clean the lots and get them cleaned out, you know, before we can offer them up for resale. Like I said, there's the administrative staffing cost that's built in there along with the legal costs. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yeah, Paul.
You said 60 units, seasonal care, I assume that's grass cutting and snow removal?
Yes, sir.
You have enough in there for 25 for 60 properties?
Yes.
You know the problems we have up in Central City?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And there's certainly, you know, the snow removal is always a wait and see kind of thing. We're not really sure, you know, how much we're gonna need that every winter, but, it's tough to calculate. And then lawn mowing, of course, we know what we have to do there.
Okay.
So you know, the tax sale, we've gone through the list. On that list right now, there's 8 properties that have been declared blighted. In my opinion, we should grab those off the list because it's more affordable for the land bank and for the, you know, anyone involved. We don't have the hassle of the whole condemnation process. We can just option the properties and acquire them. And then we've gone through the list. The authorities inspector's gone out and looked at the properties, and we've kind of identified some other properties that kind of hit either, you know, a decent property that's just kind of been left vacant for a few years that someone could, you know, we could go in, clean up, and option out for sale to, you know, a qualified developer. You know, what I mean by qualified developer, you know, when these properties go through tax sales, you never know, and especially with the tax sale being online this year. Nobody knows who's buying these properties. I know we had a blighted property on last year's tax sale that was bought by somebody in South Carolina. I mean, it's certainly not a person that we want in some of these neighborhoods and buying some of these properties that they're on judicial lists for many reasons. You know, not just because people didn't pay the taxes, but they're in poor shape. So we're looking at those. So we've got a mix of properties, 3 or 4 of them that we, you know, plan to acquire would be basically cleaned up, lawn mowed, shrubs cleaned up, you know, made ready for sale. And then we would look at how we would like to sell those, along with a couple other properties that we could maybe do some minor rehabilitation and then offer up for sale to a homeowner as an owner-occupied property. So, and then, you know, blighted properties, of course, we haven't finalized that list yet, but if, you know, we would work with the planning department and code enforcement to identify properties based upon neighborhood plans and greatest need within the neighborhoods and target those ones off the blight list. Yeah.
Are these all residential, or do you know, are there some commercial properties?
There is a couple commercial properties on the judicial tax sale list that are an option. Both of them seem to be viable properties, you know, that are fairly decent, so those are certainly a possibility. The plan is that between now and next month's meeting, I'll put together more of a final list of those to present to the board, you know, as far as what they are. That way you kind of have an idea of what we're looking at moving forward, because, you know, right now the tax sale is there at the beginning part of November, so we would have to have approval next month to option those properties off of the list.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the
Good job, Danny.
Thank you.
proposal?
Yes, if you could, you know, move on the proposed work plan.
Okay, if there are no other questions or concerns, can I get a motion for the proposed 2022 land bank work plan?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. So I will get that together and we'll move forward on that.
Now to other business.
I did one thing I forgot to mention under the executive director report. As far as the EMI bridge, if you haven't watched the news, the bridge is down. We did submit our first draw payment to the county on part of that project. So that's processing and moving forward. So once we get the final payment on the removal of that bridge, we'll put in that final draw for the 150 that the land bank had approved under the work plan toward that project. So, but that's now basically complete.
How did that process go? Was it smooth?
Yeah, it was smooth. You know, we're just getting the signatures and the proper things were, you know, a little back and forth, but we got it done. So
Did it come down as expected?
yeah.
I didn't hear anything in the news.
Each beam was roughly 53 tons.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they.
First one came down in one piece, the second one started to crack, so they did 3 things.
Quinty, I have not had any update on.
We're going out to bid, on both, we're gonna look for a bid to have both of them taken, assume it'd be a little better price to combine
Oh,
those.
to do it as one package?
The asbestos removal is moving ahead though, so, I think that's slated for next month. Target is still late November.
Okay.
That is all I had.
Any other, questions, comments?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, everyone.